My name is Joe Moore. I'm with the Ankeny Area Historical Society, and today it's my privilege and honor to remember my fifth grade teacher, and I'm going to talk to her today about her childhood and the events that led up to her teaching and all the teaching she's done in Ankeny. We'll talk about the kids in Ankeny and how they may be different than we were back in the 40s and 50s. And we're just going to talk in generalities and have a good time. Miss Bond, it's a cold morning this morning, and let's just talk first about your family. When you first were born, and your sister, and how you grew up, and where you grew up. And I think that's where we'll start. So if you'll tell me a little bit about your childhood, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I was born on a farm near Earlham, Iowa, and at age 3, I came up. The folks bought a farm in northern Polk County, and so I was raised then at White Oak, which is between Allman, Cambridge, and Elkhart. And I had a fun childhood. I was kind of in the middle, though. It was 8 years between me and my sister older, and 8 years between myself and my sister younger. So I was raised kind of like an only child. But we had fun on the farm. I think farms are wonderful places to raise kids. And the neighbor kids, we'd go out in the timber there having lots of fun in the summertime and went sliding and doing that sort of thing. I graduated from a consolidated school at White Oak. And from there I attended 2 years at Simpson College until I got my elementary certificate to teach.
You got it in two. They did it in 2 years then.
At that time you could get an elementary certificate, yes. I'll have to say that I grew up during the Depression. I graduated right at the time of World War II that started, in Europe, however. And in fact, one of the fellows in my class was killed at Pearl Harbor. And we had, going through the Depression and going through the World War II, we were not well-to-do at all.
And that was tough times too for people.
Very tough times, yes. My dad owed money on the farm, and so we didn't have money to go to college. So I borrowed the money to go to Simpson. The folks could not pay anything toward my education at that time. Then I went to Boxholm to teach, and Jorgensen was the one that hired me at Simpson. He was the superintendent at Boxholm.
I'll be darned. I didn't know that.
And they had a house right beside the teachridge, and I don't suppose many people know what a teachridge is, but we had one at Boxholm. And it was during the war, and so it was very comfortable we couldn't afford gas. Gas was rationed. We didn't have cars because we couldn't afford a car. So we really had a lot of fun. We made our own fun there in Boxholm, a small town, but the whole community knew that we were there, and they would call if we wanted to go shopping anywhere, or if they wanted to ride here or there, whatever. They felt very comfortable calling the teachers, and we had that sort of service then there in the community. It was a Scandinavian. It was Swedish community, and we had Mom Brode was our house mother, and I've never eaten such good food in my life. The dining room table was stretched way out across the dining room, and we had such good times there. So it was a good start in my teaching career.
Tell me about a teachery a little bit more. What was the teachery you said?
Teacherage.
Teacherage. Oh, I'm sorry.
It was just one great big house, and it had many, many bedrooms, and it had a kitchen and dining room and a living room, and the house mother did all the work. We didn't have to clean our bedrooms or anything. We were really spoiled.
Oh my gosh.
And the schoolhouse was sat right on Highway 169, and as I said, the Jorgensens lived right next to our teacherage. And so Jorgie liked to fish, and because of gas rationing, sometimes he would say, let's all get in the school bus and we'll go over to, there was a state park nearby. Can't say the name of it right now, but anyway, we just we just had more fun doing the things that we did there. And of course, in that community, it was all rural children mostly.
What was the school? What was the school? Was it K?
Yeah, it was K through 12.
K through 12.
Mm-hmm. And I taught 5th and 6th grade departmentalized there. And after 3 years of teaching there, then an opening came up here in Ankeny in the fall after school started. There was a teacher that got sick, and Enolia was already teaching here. So she called me and asked me if I'd be interested in the job, because that would put me close to Drake, and I could go ahead and finish my last 2 years at Drake then. And that's exactly what I did.
Holy smoke! So
that
your last
was in 1945 that I came here.
1945, and then you finished your last 2 years at Drake.
That's right.
And that's where you.
And I took my graduate work there at Drake too. And then it was another community where we had a lot of rural kids here, and you couldn't ask for more cooperation from the parents. It was a delightful experience teaching the first half of my teaching career. Really, I had wonderful students and parents.
So you started teaching in 45 in Ankeny?
Mm-hmm.
With 45. Yes. So I started kindergarten at 41, 42, 43, 44, 45. So I was in about the 4th grade when you came here. So
probably.
We was your second bunch that came in.
Actually, I taught also in 6th grade here, like I did at Boxholm, 5th and 6th grade.
Oh, 5th and 6th grade.
Well, they departmentalized.
Yes,
and
I understand.
I taught social studies and math in 6th grade. And my first class was Randall Hirsch and Jack Kovacevic was in that one.
Yes,
and
that's
David
correct.
Mowering.
Yes.
Now, I can't go on much from there, but anyway,
Art Purdy may have been there. I don't know.
There were some Purdy's in school about that time.
Yes, because Don went with me, and Kenny was with my little sister, and they're 56 grads, but I know you taught them also.
Yes, well,
Randall Hirsch, my gosh.
Yeah. The superintendent that hired me here was Evans.
Was his name Bert?
I can't say his first name.
Mr. Evans. Oh no. See, yeah, I think it was. I remember Mr. Evans.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He wasn't here very long after I came, and then Jorgensen came.
Seems like Mr. Evans had the girls' basketball, but I may be wrong, because I was little then anyhow. And then Mr. Jorgensen came. Did you say?
Mm-hmm.
After that.
Yes, he followed me to Ankeny.
I take one of the greatest men I admired and respected, and I got to tell him that because he came to all of our little outings we have, the class of '54, him and his wife also, and you've been to him too, and Mr. Troxel, Mr. Hart. But Mr. Jorgensen was well respected, and that's the superintendent. But we all admired him. Especially we all remembered when his little boy got burnt.
Oh, yes.
He saw something on TV about a clown or somebody going through a thing of fire, and so he tried it. And we all remembered that because he lived in the house. They had a house next to the school,
right.
And that's where they lived.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was burned so much over his body.
Craig.
It was Craig. That's
yeah,
right.
I forgot his name.
He doesn't live too far from me here. But anyway, it was almost a miracle that he lived.
Oh yeah, because no one expected him to live. That was the talk around town.
Oh, yes.
And we all remembered that
Mm-hmm.
because he was burnt just real bad.
I had one of the Jorgensen girls in Boxholm, and then I had Craig in school here.
Oh, you did? My gosh, they
Which
come.
was quite unusual.
Yeah, they came the full turn then, all the way around, didn't they?
Uh-huh.
About some of your teachers when you first came here that you remember. I remember
Well,
Miss Lamberti in
yes,
6th grade.
Yes,
She was a dear sweetheart
yes,
to all of us
she
kids
was.
too.
Margaret Lamberti and
Yes,
I
ma'am.
were very, very
Mingo's
close.
wife.
Yes, and I was so sad when she passed away. She had those small children at the time of her passing. But Margaret and I were very, very close. Mrs. Hartung.
Mrs. Hartung, yeah.
We were in the old grade building then.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Had a son named John.
Mr. Elmendorf was a principal there.
Oh no, I
He was there a while. Remember when we had the outbreak of not scarlet fever, but polio.
No, polio, yes.
Yeah, he
Yes.
was there during that time because we all were watching the kids for if they might come down with polio, you know. And let's see,
Was Miss
Mrs.
Ballard there?
Pence, yes. There was a Mrs. Pence that also was a, I
Mm-hmm.
think she came before Elmendorf, who was a principal, but she wasn't here very long. Yes, the old building, I think I was there, teaching there about, I don't know, 8 years or so maybe. I'm just kind of guessing at that. Now, we were there at the time that Ankeny expanded so, and I know that it sounds like that I was stretching it, but I had 48 fifth graders at one time. And everyone that came into Ankeny and moved there, Mr. Jorgensen would bring another fifth grader to my door. And, but I have a picture of the whole group, so I can prove that there were 48. Well, what the school board did, they knew that I couldn't handle all that and with all the subjects. And so in the afternoon, we split the group up. And Mrs. Maybon, Harriet Maybon,
Mrs.
took
Maybon.
half of them and took them over to the lunchroom in the old high school.
I'll be darned.
And then she taught the basics, and I taught the basics then to the other half in the afternoon, and that's the way we carried on.
You know, that was a lot of kids. Now they holler if they get up to 27.
Yes.
But I told my
But,
wife, I remember when I went to school, the teachers taught everybody was there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the building then was almost finished at Parkview, and we did expand then within a year or so and went over to Parkview, and then I taught there quite a while. I was in 3 different rooms in that building teaching, and we went back then at that time. I believe we had self-contained classrooms. I don't think we did teaching, just certain subjects and moved from classroom to the other. I think for a while we just had our own class. But we were very happy to get back, or to get over into that building because we were so crowded at the old school building.
I think I was a junior in high school. That had to be the 52-53 year when Parkview was opened. In fact, it seems like they opened it and it wasn't done yet even. I think it seems like they opened.
They just opened the first floor.
That was right, the first floor,
right.
because
And
upstairs
then,
wasn't
yes.
done yet.
And then we had to wait because we were our upper grades were up in the upper level.
I don't know how you teachers put up with all that moving I mean, you had to be dedicated people yourself and every other teacher that was up there to go into a building that's not completed yet, and the newness, and then more kids and more kids because Ankeny started growing.
Yeah, that was the time that Ankeny was really growing. We had 1,000 children in that Parkview building, and that's when Mr. Gray came as principal there.
Mr. Gray, yes.
The building itself was very, very nice, however. We had lots of cupboard space and everything like that, so we really enjoyed that. But I have happy memories of that building. We really enjoyed it. And I finished teaching in that building before I retired. I was there for 6 years because the Northwest School was too crowded, so they had to move us out. And 5th and 6th grade went over there, so I finished my teaching there.
I think one time when I was back home, I think I visited you at Northwest. One time. I can't remember what you were teaching then, but it seems like I visited you in Northwest.
Well, I taught most of my years at Northwest. You see, I was at Parkview in '61 when we decided to move to California. And we took a leave of absence of 1 year to see how we would like it out there, because one of my sisters and all of her family was there, and it was nice for us to go out and be with them. So we went out in '61, and before the summer was over, we both had jobs, and I taught at Mount Vernon in Lemon Grove, and it's just right up next to San Diego.
I was in San Diego. I know where Lemon Grove is.
Yes, and it was a brand new building that I got to teach in, and it was a delightful experience. when I went there, they said that they had just had a vacancy come up in second grade because the teacher was moving with her husband who was in the Navy. So they wanted to know if I would take that, and then they would give me a fifth grade or sixth grade later on when it opened up, if I would take a second grade. Well, I had never taught anything below fourth grade, and I said, I'm not too sure, I might be too hard on them. But the assistant superintendent said, just try it out. He says, I'll come and visit and we'll tell you if you're too hard on them. Anyway, I had a ball because being used to fifth and sixth graders and then going down to second grade, and they just absolutely eat out of your hand. You don't have to
Sure they do.
I just had a ball. So when they came to me, they were honest about it. They came before the year was out. They had an opening in fifth grade if I wanted to go and take it. Of course, they had many buildings, and it wouldn't have been in my building where I was at Mount Vernon. But I said, if you are satisfied with me, I'm going to stay if you want me to. And so they said, well, they were just real happy for me to be there. And so I went ahead and took the second grade then for 3 years that I was there.
And Lemon Grove, wasn't it a growing community when you was there?
Yes.
Lemon Grove?
Oh, in the 60s.
That's what I'm talking about, because I was out there in the 60s.
Yeah, after the war, it just mushroomed. Towns did.
Oh, yeah.
We had opportunity to go to several schools that had just brand new schools in brand new communities. They were hiring teachers by the dozens out there then and they liked to get Iowa teachers, and Drake particular, they liked Drake teachers.
I'll be darned.
So it wasn't hard for us to get a job, and we really enjoyed it at that time. I really enjoyed, we had a wonderful administration and they were very fair to the teachers, and I really enjoyed my work there for the 3 years. Now, at the time that we went out there, and we would have gone anyway for 1 year at least, they had an organization trying to let out-of-state teachers buy into their retirement system. And of course, you know how California is so very, very independent, and the teachers, they weren't on Social Security or anything. They had their own retirement system, which is a very good one. But it never did pass, and but by the third year, we decided that we had too much to lose in our retirement, so we had to come back to Iowa to finish our teaching.
So that was the reason why you came back to Iowa
That's
then?
the reason we came.
Was it your younger, I never knew, and I might have and forgot, I never knew about your younger sister.
I don't know whether you remember there's a Fausch here in town.
Yes.
Do you know?
Sandy graduated with my little sister Karen, and she's just passed away. Lyle Fausch, is that who you're talking about?
No, that's not the one. It's
Another one.
Stephen Fausch. Steve Fausch. He's a great Iowa State ball thing deal. He's there with it all the time. But anyway, my youngest sister married the Fausch, and then they moved. They happened to move in the Ankeny area after, and I had been here a number of years, and so I have a niece and a nephew here. They're Kathy Fausch is married to Craig Myman.
I'll have to find that name out because that's familiar. Even
there are many Fausches up around Alleman and Slater.
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah.
What really made you go into teaching after you got out of school? Was it the availability of a job, or was?
No, it was because we came from a family of teachers. I guess it was just expected. My two older sisters both taught. Eileen, my youngest sister, did not teach, but it just seemed like that, especially at that time, women mostly taught. They didn't go into the very, like, lawyers and doctors and so on. Women just didn't go into those areas at that time. But no, I had a talent for teaching. I used what God-given talent that I had, and I had no doubts but what I should be a teacher.
And us fifth grade kids, I know that's an age where boys finally learn what little girls are like. I can remember the 5th and 6th grade, Marilyn Granville, Marilyn McCarty. I can remember a lot of the girls. The only thing we really worried about, even in the earlier years, was whoever got out to the softball diamond. We played out in front of the school. Whoever got out there first controlled the diamond. So if a girl beat us out there, we had to let the girls play.
Yes.
Now that's one thing that's really riveted in my mind. So we had to beat the girls, but a lot of times we didn't because Shirley Muhlenthaler was awful fast, and Barb Johnson White came in the 4th grade to Ankeny. And so that was just another girl that we had trouble beating out to play softball with. So that's some of the memories. I remember Gertrude Yarn, when I was 5 years old, sent me to see Mr. Nevlin because I'd been a bad boy and pushed a kid and cut his head. Well, you can imagine a 5-year-old boy having to go see Mr. Nevlin, who was a very strict principal. I mean, we all heard about the boards and the belts and everything. I tend to believe it was probably true because he controlled the school, and I don't think he ever had any trouble. But when I was in the earlier grades, up to 6th grade in the old grade school, I can name all of my teachers. From Miss Brooks in the 1st grade, Miss Yarn was a kindergarten, Miss Hartung, Miss Ballard, Miss Bond, Mrs. Lamberti, and then I can go up to Mrs. Stroop and Anolia and Mr. Elmendorf, and I can name all of them. But you people, you commanded respect, but you never really treated us kids like we weren't something. And you said something that I love to hear, and that was a lot of ladies taught. Well, that's because even little boys and little girls, but you were sort of like mothers to us, really. And if we respected our parents, that's why not only did you gain our respect from what you taught us, but that's what we were brought up with. Because I know if a teacher got on me, or I know other kids too, if you got in trouble with a teacher, when you got home, it was horrible. I also remember how much help that you teachers gave kids even after school. You spent many hours that you never got paid for. You would come to the homes if you had to. And tell me the difference between the kids nowadays and the kids back in the 40s and 50s when you were a young teacher in Boxholm or in Ankeny. The difference in the kids nowadays.
I think it's the attitude. The attitude of the children in those days was that they came to school for the purpose of learning, and they knew it. Now, I contribute that to the homes. They valued education, and the children just expected to come to school and sit down and behave and learn. That was what their parents expected of them. And, of course, kids will be kids. We had some...
We were.
Sure, and I believed in discipline, fair discipline, and I expected the kids to behave when we were having class, and then they could have their fun time at recess and so on. The children today, the attitudes are just so different. For one thing, they do not assume responsibilities. I'm amazed at the kind of things that I had the children do my first half of teaching, first 20 years of teaching, and how they accepted those responsibilities and just carried them out so well. I'm really concerned about the kind of people that we have in our society today because the ethics of working and so on it's just been so different from in our day. And I feel sorry for the children in a way because it's not all their fault. I think the television has had such a big influence on kids.
We'll stop that just for a minute and we'll answer. Okay, Ms. Bond, we'll get back to the kids unless you, if you need anything to allude to.
Yes.
My grandkids are the same way too. Sometimes I don't understand them and I love them, but they're different than I was.
Oh yes, and the peers have so much influence upon the kids today. They always did have some influence, but I think that the children of yesteryears would really respect their parents' desires if they if what they were doing was different from what the parents believed was right to do. There's a lot of things I could talk about as far as the differences, but I think it all goes back to an attitude toward learning and an attitude attitude toward belonging to the group. And they pick up so much on television that is not good for them. Their minds are filled with things that should not be.
We know that.
Now, we know that there are good kids. I'm not saying that
Yes, we
not,
do. Yes, we do.
But we have these that are troublesome, and we have a lot of problems.
I agree with you about television. Just the other day, I didn't happen to see it, but I watched the Super Bowl. But what I understand what happened at halftime, I've read about it in the paper and heard about it on TV till I'm sick of it. And they let MTV control the halftime. Well, CBS learned that wasn't a very intelligent thing to do, because I used to watch the football games with my son when he was a little boy growing up, and for him to be, or my grandkids, for him or them to be exposed to that, I just, at age 67, I don't understand that. To me, I think television not only has taken up so much of our time, including when we get older, taken up so much of our time, that maybe if they would read or write or anything, sit down and write a letter to their grandparents, sit down and write a letter to their aunt, their uncle, that would be better than some of the TV programs. And I think the other day we lost Captain Kangaroo. I can remember my boy growing up, and he was between him and Mr. Rogers, it was two people that I respected as an older person. Yes. We don't have things like that for kids anymore. Even the cartoons on Saturday, I watched them one Saturday. They were so much different than the cartoons that when we got TV that my son watched. Mm-hmm. So that I think has changed too.
Well, and of course the one big thing is the home. Our homes are the broken homes. Now, when I first started teaching, that was a very rare thing for children to have to come from broken homes. But today, of course, it's just the run-of-the-mill thing.
You know, it's almost the norm now. I think it's probably up to almost 60% of people who get married get divorced. I'm celebrating my 50th wedding anniversary next year. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people talk to us like, you know, it's just an impossibility. Well, I see it in the paper all the time. There's lots of people that have been married 50 years, but I guess when we took our vows, we tried to mean them, even though I only knew my wife a week and decided to get married and did it, but we made it work. I think they let people get divorced too easy nowadays anyhow. Is any of this problem in the schools a teacher's fault too? Part of it? Any of it?
Oh, I'm sure that there are. I don't know what the younger teachers are like. I haven't been back into the school for so many years, but I will say this, that all the time that I taught in Ankeny had good teachers. There were very few of them that didn't have the child in mind and wanting to do the best for the children.